This is problem 7-41 from section 7.1.3's homework. Write the quadratic function in problem 7-40 in graphing form and sketch its graph. So what we have is the equation from 740, which was y equals 3x squared plus 6x plus 1. We need to change this into graphing form, which means we're going to complete the square, which we've talked about this in several homework problems about factoring out this number in front. I don't want it to be a 3, I want it to be a 1. So I'm going to factor out a 3 from just the first and second term. So I'm left with x squared plus 6 divided by 3 will leave me at 2x. And I'm going to have this plus 1 left on the outside. Alright, so now we're just going to do completing the square with things inside of the parentheses right here. So draw my box. So I'm going to put my x squared in the bottom left corner. I'm going to split up this 2x into 2 equal parts, so that'll be a 1x and 1x. Okay, so now I'm going to label my outsides. What this column has in common is they both have an x. This needs to be a 1. This will be an x. This will be a 1. So now I know my outsides. So in this top box, top right corner, should be 1 times 1 would give me a 1. But I really have no constant terms in the parentheses stuff. Right? It's x squared plus 2x. I could write plus 0 if I wanted to. So I have 0. I need to get to 1. So I'm going to add 1. Now we talked about this. I'm adding 1 onto this side. But I'm also adding, I'm really having 3 times that plus 1 I'm adding. So I'm really going to add over to the left side plus 3 times 1. Right? So since I factored out that 3 to begin with, I need 3 times whatever I added to make my square. So now I'm going to have y plus 3, back up here, y plus 3 equals, now I have 3 times the stuff in parentheses. And I'm going to have my little plus 1 on the end still. Now we're going to write the stuff in parentheses as a product instead. So this times this. So x plus 1. Now I could write it twice, or since I have 2 of them, I'm going to say squared. So now it's almost in graphing form. The last step we need to do is subtract this 3 from both sides. So once I combine my terms, I'll have this going to cancel out. I'll have y equals 3 times x plus 1 squared, and 1 minus 3 will give me minus 2 on the end. So this is in graphing form now. So that is your equation. Okay. The next thing that we need to do is to graph this equation, or graph this parabola. So I can find my vertex quickly from the graphing form. It's going to be opposite of this first number, and I keep the second number the same. So my vertex is going to be -1, comma, -2. I take the opposite of the first number, keep the second number the same. So I'm going to plot those points, -1, comma, -2, as best I can on here. Let's see, that's pretty good. Oh, I don't want that. Let's start again. Not working for us today. Try one more time. Interesting. So maybe let's delete our graph. We're just going to do without this graph. So hopefully you guys can see the general idea of the graph. So I'm going to draw in my graph coordinates here. I'm going to be at a point, my vertex was -1, -2, so about down here. It does not like me double tapping. Oh man. Okay, let's try this. One last time, we're gonna get it. Let's fix our axes. That and my point. Give me about, let's say right there. We're gonna go with that. Okay, so that's -1, -2. So I have this speed a little notch right here. Speed interval. Perfect. Alright, that's what it's gonna look like. So then we need to find some other points. So what we can do is we could find our x-intercepts, possibly, by plugging in y equals 0 into our equation that we found. So I'm going to say 0 instead of y equals 3 times x plus 1 squared minus 2. Okay? So I'm going to add my 2 over to both sides. So now I have 2 equals 3 times x plus 1 squared. And I'm going to get rid of this 3. I'm going to divide everything by 3. So I really have 2/3 equals, this is going to cancel out, x plus 1 on d squared. Now to get rid of my squared, I'm going to undo this squaring by taking the square root of both sides. That will cancel out that. So I'm going to call this the square root of 2/3. You can figure that out in our calculator. And remember, it's going to be plus or minus. I need 2 answers here. So I'm going to take my squared and my square root kind of cancel each other out, so I have x plus 1 left over. So what you can do to find your x-intercepts, I can take positive square root of 2/3 minus 1 equals x. That is one of your answers. So if we type that into our calculator, we will get approximately -0.18. And now I'm going to take negative square root of 2/3. Because remember, I have negative from up here, plus or minus. And I have 2 answers, equals x. So I take negative square root of 2/3, take away 1. I'll have approximately -1.81. Okay, so these are going to be approximations in our graph. And you can also double check this by plugging in your graphing form into your calculator and plugging in the standard form into your calculator and see if you get the same graph. So I have at almost -2 for an x-coordinate, so say this is also -2, so maybe about there. And I have -0.18, so pretty close to 0. So now I connect these 3 points, and I can go up here. So I really need 3 points to plot a parabola. So you can also use, once you get your graphing form, if you just want to plug it into your calculator and get the table for here, that will give you some nice points to graph. They may not be super nice points, they might be decimals, but at least you can see that. Okay, so changing from standard form, which is here, into graphing form, which is in the box right there.